The night has fallen gently over Bikini Bottom. A cool, bluish calm spreads through the water, wrapping around every coral tower and sandy path like a soft blanket. The light from the surface filters down in broken waves, trembling as it reaches the quiet streets below. It's not darkness, exactly more like a dim dream that shimmers with soft motion. The kind of night where everything feels slower, quieter, deeper. You step carefully onto Conch Avenue, the main road that winds through the heart of Bikini Bottom. The sand beneath your feet gives a faint crunch, not loud, just enough to remind you that you're here, awake, moving through a place that has decided to rest. The street lamps, shaped like hollow jellyfish bulbs, glow with gentle pink and lavender hues. Their filaments pulse faintly, breathing light into the water. Tiny bubbles rise from the metal stems that anchor them, floating upward like drifting thoughts escaping the ocean floor. Somewhere far above, the waves stir, sending down ripples that sway the shadows along the road. A sea fan rustles softly, brushing against the coral fence beside SpongeBob's pineapple house. The fence creaks a little, not from wind, but from the slow shift of the current. Every sound here has been softened by water, as if the world itself is whispering. You pause in front of the pineapple. Its walls gleam faintly orange, warm against the cool blues of the night. The windows are dim, their shades drawn, but through the small, round porthole near the top, you can see the faint flicker of movement, SpongeBob turning in his sleep perhaps, or Gary curling closer on the pillow. From within, there's a soft murmur, barely audible, like a tiny wave against the shore. Gary is dreaming, and the thought makes you smile. The mailbox outside sways slightly on its post, its tiny flag half raised, its nameplate glinting in the lamp's soft light. S. SquarePants. You imagine SpongeBob's laughter echoing through these streets earlier in the day, bright and full of energy. But now, even that memory seems to rest, tucked under the hush of the ocean night. The water feels thicker, heavier with silence, as if it's cradling the entire town in its slow, endless breathing. You take a few more steps down the street. To your left, the familiar face of Squidward's house rises, the tall stone head with its long, solemn expression, carved into the coral. Its eyes, usually alert with annoyance, now glow dimly with the last flicker of a lamp inside. You can see the outline of Squidward through his window, not clearly, but enough to sense his posture. He's fallen asleep in his chair again, clarinet resting loosely in his tentacle, the music sheet still open before him. A single note of sound lingers in the water, a low hum that could be imagination, or the ghost of the last note he played before drifting off. The melody is faint, gentle, and incomplete, like a lullaby that forgot its ending. The silence between the houses hums softly. Bubbles slip past your ankles, breaking gently against the sand. Somewhere nearby, a clam closes with a muffled click. The faint scent of salt, kelp, and something metallic fills the water, the scent of stillness, if stillness could have one. You glance toward the horizon, where the lights of downtown Bikini Bottom glow faintly. A distant haze of pinks and blues that looks like a sleeping city seen through a dream. Across the street, Patrick's Rock is half buried in shadow. Only the edges gleam where the lamp touches it, the light tracing the curve like a moonlit hill. The rock hasn't moved all evening, perfectly still, perfectly quiet. Yet it feels alive in that strange way Patrick's home always does. You can almost picture him inside, snoring softly beneath the rock's lid, dreaming of ice cream or jellyfishing adventures. The thought adds a kind of warmth to the cool night, the comfort of knowing the world still turns in its own sleepy rhythm, even when no one's awake to see it. A current passes through, slow and wide. It brushes against the coral mailboxes and the soft seagrass by the road, making them sway in unison. It feels like the ocean's exhale, long, patient, and kind. The lamps flicker in its passing, and for a moment the whole street dims, wrapped in a deeper shade of blue. Then the light steadies again, faint bubbles swirling in its wake. You close your eyes briefly, feeling the pull of that current, the way it tugs gently at your clothes, your thoughts, your breath. The sound of the night grows clearer when you stand still, the distant crackle of a shell shifting in the sand, the hum of water against coral, the slow, steady thump of your own heart echoing through the quiet. It's easy to imagine that you're the only one awake in all of Bikini Bottom, that the entire town has sunk into a single shared dream, a dream of calm seas and soft currents and endless rest. As you move again, the sand stirs lightly underfoot. Tiny shrimp dart from shadow to shadow, their translucent bodies catching flashes of lamplight. They vanish almost instantly, leaving behind only faint trails in the sand. Up ahead, the street curves gently, leading toward the Krusty Krab. But for now, you stay here among the quiet homes, under the gentle hum of jellyfish lamps, where every sound feels slow and safe. Each moment drifts into the next, like waves folding over one another, calm, unhurried, eternal. You continue your walk along the curve of Conch Avenue. The street narrows slightly here, winding between tall coral spires that rise like watchful shapes in the dim light. Their surfaces are speckled with soft moss and tiny bioluminescent dots, sea glow worms that pulse faintly, blinking in quiet rhythm, like the heartbeat of the reef itself. Each pulse reflects on the sand, painting the ground with glimmers of green and blue. You reach out to touch one of the coral walls. It's cool beneath your fingertips, smooth where the current has worn it down. The faint hum of water moving through the cracks feels almost alive, like the reef is breathing. You stand there for a moment, your hand resting on the coral, listening. It's not silence here. Not truly. It's something gentler, a stillness filled with soft motion. The kind of sound that only exists when everything is calm enough to be heard. A small bubble drifts past your face, rising slowly toward the surface. Another follows, then another, a tiny stream, like the laughter of the sea escaping from the earth itself. You watch them float upward until they vanish into the darkness above. For a long time, you do nothing else. Just watch and breathe. When you start walking again, the current shifts slightly. A few grains of sand spiral around your feet. To your right, you see the faint outline of Mrs. Puff's boating school. The gate closed, the buoys rocking softly in the current. The signs and flags that flapped noisily during the day now hang still, their edges swaying only when the tide sighs. Through the murky windows, you can see the classroom, empty desks, rows of steering wheels, and faint trails of chalk dust floating in slow spirals. You imagine the echoes of SpongeBob's laughter and nervous chatter that once filled this room. But tonight, it's peaceful. The water here is thick with rest. Past the school, the path widens again. A patch of seagrass sways lazily along the edges of the road, soft blades brushing against the coral walls. Tiny sea snails crawl along their stems, leaving silver trails of bubbles behind. The lamps overhead grow farther apart now, and the world between them is darker. You move slowly through that darkness, letting your eyes adjust to the dim. The blue fades into deep violet, the violet into indigo. The further you walk, the quieter it becomes, as though even the ocean has decided to lower its voice. A small crab scurries across your path, claws raised half-heartedly before it vanishes under a rock. The sound it makes is faint, but crisp, a tiny crackling noise that quickly fades back into the hush. The sand glows faintly in this part of the street, lit by clusters of tiny glowing algae. They shimmer whenever the current touches them, like fireflies that have learned to swim. You follow their light for a while, each step sinking slightly into the sand. The motion feels rhythmic. Step, sink, rise, breathe like a lullaby written for your body. You again, glancing upward. High above, faint streaks of moonlight ripple through the ocean, shifting with the movement of the waves above. It's strange to think how far that light has traveled, how it bends, fades, and softens before it finally reaches this sleepy little town beneath. You can almost imagine someone on the surface looking down, seeing nothing but quiet blue, unaware that below them lies a city asleep under the sea. As you move again, you pass a row of coral chimneys. Tiny bubbles rise from their tops, twisting through the water in smooth spirals. The sound they make is low and distant, like the soft boiling of a kettle in another room. Each bubble catches a piece of light as it rises, glowing briefly before vanishing into the dark. You find yourself following their trail, each one leading you deeper into calm. The road dips slightly now, curving downward toward the old snail park, a place SpongeBob sometimes takes Gary during the day. At night, it's completely still. The small shell-shaped benches are half covered in sand, and the play area is empty except for the slow drift of bubbles rising from the ground. A gentle current rolls through, brushing the sand in soft patterns. You can almost hear it whisper, not in words, but in rhythm, a kind of sound that says, "Rest now. The day is done." You walk past a tiny fountain made of coral stone. The water that flows from its mouth is faintly luminous, trickling in slow streams. Each drop catches the lamplight and falls like liquid moonlight into the shallow basin below. The sound is hypnotic, a constant, unhurried murmur. You stop to listen. It's a perfect rhythm, slow, measured, peaceful. The sort of sound that seems to exist only at night, when everything else is quiet enough to let it be heard. The current moves again, brushing softly across your arms. It carries with it the faint scent of kelp blossoms from the gardens nearby. The fragrance is delicate, almost sweet, and it drifts like memory there for a moment, then gone. You close your eyes and breathe it in, feel thoughts slow with every breath. There's no need to rush here. The night isn't going anywhere. When you open your eyes, the light has shifted slightly. The lamps seem dimmer now, or maybe it's just your eyes growing heavier, lulled by the rhythm of the sea. You take another step forward, sand swirling lightly around your feet. Ahead, the road continues its gentle curve, leading toward the edge of town where the coral cliffs begin to rise. Behind you, Conch Avenue glows faintly, every home and lamp blending into a soft watercolor blur. Before you, quiet water, open and wide, waiting. You keep walking, every step slower than the last. The sea around you hums quietly, and the whole world feels as if it's breathing in time with you. You follow the curve of Conch Avenue as it begins to slope downward. The coral ridge rises beside you, tall, weathered, and streaked with pale blue veins where water seeps through slowly. Tiny fish dart in and out of the cracks, their silvery bodies catching glimmers of the jellyfish lamps. Each flash of light feels like a heartbeat in the dark, quick but soft, gone before you can blink. The ridge hums faintly as the current brushes past it. It's a sound you can feel through your chest, deep and low, the kind of vibration that makes the world seem alive beneath your feet. The water carries it forward, layering it with the distant hush of bubbles rising somewhere unseen. Every sound in this part of Bikini Bottom seems to move slower at night, stretched out, softened, and wrapped in peace. To your left, the ground opens into a wide garden of sea flowers. Their petals glow faintly with pastel light, pinks, blues, and yellows that sway in unison with the tide. Some are closed tightly, sleeping. Others still drift lazily open, their filaments brushing against the sand like fingertips tracing old memories. You walk between them, careful not to disturb their rhythm. Each movement you make sends a small wave through the blossoms, causing them to ripple outward. A wave of light traveling across the field until it fades into darkness again. Somewhere nearby, a seahorse glides past, slow, elegant, its tail curling and uncurling as it moves. Its eyes blink once, glowing faintly amber before it disappears behind the coral stems. You can still see the trail it leaves, a thin shimmer of disturbed water, fading like starlight. The path begins to narrow again, framed by two coral walls that lean inward as if protecting the walkway from the sea beyond. The lamps are fewer here, and the darkness grows deeper. But it's not an unfriendly dark. It feels safe, like a blanket of water drawn close around you. Each step you take sends a gentle puff of sand into the current, floating upward and drifting away, dissolving into the stillness. You glance upward and notice a slow-moving school of glowing jellyfish drifting high above. Their tendrils pulse in synchronized rhythm, a living constellation sliding across the ceiling of the sea. They cast moving shadows on the sand below, slow waves of light that pass over you like the ocean's quiet heartbeat. You pause to watch them, the world beyond you forgotten. Their glow flickers like soft lanterns carried by invisible hands, their light never sharp, never harsh, just endlessly gentle. For a long time it feels like you're floating too, rising with them toward some calm place beyond the waves. A soft sound brings you back, the gentle hum of a clam opening nearby. Shell parts just slightly, releasing a cloud of glowing dust that twinkles in the current. It's strange, almost magical, as if the sea itself is exhaling light. The dust drifts for a while, catching the glow of the jellyfish above before it finally fades into the dark. You keep walking. The ground beneath you changes the sand, now mixed with small shells that crunch quietly underfoot. Their faint crackle adds texture to the silence, a rhythm to match your breathing. The shells glint under the dim light, each one a tiny mirror of the ocean's color, turquoise, lavender, pearl white. Every step feels like walking through fragments of dreams. You pass a row of stone statues, old sea figures carved from coral, smoothed by time and tide. Their faces are kind and calm, eyes closed, as if they too have surrendered to sleep. Tiny seaweed vines wrap around their arms and shoulders, moving gently with the water's slow rhythm. They look like guardians of this part of the town, not stern but patient, quietly keeping watch while the rest of Bikini Bottom dreams. As you move past them, the water temperature shifts slightly cooler, fresher. You sense the presence of the open ocean beyond the ridge. A faint hum of faraway currents echoes through the coral, a whisper of the vast sea just beyond sight. You breathe it in that wide, endless feeling of space and quiet, and it settles softly inside you. Ahead, a faint golden glow begins, though, to appear. It's distant at first, a warmth through the deep blue, like a fire seen through fog. You know what it is before you even see the sign. The Krusty Krab, its windows glowing faintly in the water, the wooden beams swaying gently with the tide. But for now, you stay on the path. And there's no hurry. The light will wait. You pause one last time before leaving the ridge. Behind you, the faint shimmer of the seaflower garden stretches out, each petal glowing softer now, fading toward rest. Above, the jellyfish have drifted farther away, their light barely visible through the thick water. All around, the night seems to hold still, perfectly balanced between motion and silence. You take one more slow breath. The water moves through your fingers. Tiny particles of light swirl lazily in the current, like dust in a sunbeam. You reach out to touch them, and they scatter soft, glowing alive. The sea feels infinite, but it also feels intimate, like it knows you, welcomes you, carries you gently onward. And so, with the ridge behind and the golden glow ahead, you begin to walk again slowly, calmly letting the current guide you through the heart of the sleeping town. The soft, golden light ahead grows clearer with every step. Through the thick blue water, the familiar outline of the Krusty Krab takes shape, its roof slightly tilted, its sign swaying lazily with the current. The windows glow faintly, casting warm ripples across the sand. It looks different at night, smaller somehow, gentler. The daytime clatter of laughter, sizzling oil, and ringing bells is long faded, replaced by something deeper and slower, silence that hums. You stop a short distance away, not wanting to disturb that peace. The sand here is finer, smoother shaped by countless steps during the day, now perfectly still. You can almost trace the faint outlines of where SpongeBob stood, flipping Krabby Patties, where Mr. Krab shuffled from table to table, counting coins, where Squidward leaned on the counter, sighing through another long shift. All of those sounds, those lives, are now sleeping somewhere beyond the light. Or rather, the water stirs their memory. It feels like the restaurant is dreaming, too. The sign creaks softly overhead, the faintest squeak carried through the current. Its letters shimmer in the lamp glow, their shadows stretching across the sand like sleepy reflections. You can hear the gentle tick of the cash register's clock inside, steady, rhythmic, echoing through the quiet building. It's the heartbeat of a place that refuses to fully stop, even in rest. You draw a little closer, just enough to see through the glass. Inside, the tables are neatly arranged, their surfaces gleaming faintly under the soft lamplight. A broom leans against the counter, its bristles swaying like seagrass. One chair is slightly out of place, turned halfway toward the window, as if someone meant to leave and forgot. A small napkin floats near the ceiling, caught in a gentle swirl of current, moving in slow circles like a lost thought that hasn't found where to settle. The grill behind the counter is clean, its surface reflecting the dim light in rippling lines. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it still, the echo of sizzling oil, the sound of SpongeBob's cheerful humming, the bell that rings with every order served. But those sounds don't belong to this hour. Now, the Krusty Krab is only breathing. A place between dreams, awake enough to remember, tired enough to rest. You linger there a while. The current drifts softly past, stirring the sand at your feet, drawing faint spirals that fade as quickly as they form. In the far corner of the restaurant sign, a small crab rests motionless, its shell catching the faint glint of the jellyfish lamps. Even the sea creatures seem to understand the language of this night. Slow down, breathe, rest. You turn slowly, letting the warm glow of the Krusty Krab fall behind you. Ahead, the road widens again, opening into a gentle slope that leads back toward the heart of town. The water feels heavier here, richer with the scents of coral and kelp. You follow the path, your movements quiet, unhurried. The lamps grow brighter for a moment as you pass, or maybe your eyes are resting again after the golden haze. Their light is different now, a soft lilac hue that ripples across the sand like waves of lavender mist. Somewhere above, a current drifts by, stirring the strands of your hair. It carries the distant sound of something, perhaps a whale call, deep and far away. It lasts only a second, then fades back into the quiet. The water feels infinite again, stretching out in every direction, and yet there's still comfort here, a sense that you're exactly where you need to be. You pause beside a tall coral spire, its surface carved with small notches and grooves. Inside one of them, a sleeping snail has tucked itself away. The water thickens as you approach the Krusty Krab. That golden glow you saw from afar now spreads out like a soft mist, washing the sand in gentle warmth. It doesn't feel like light exactly, more like the memory of it lingering in the dark, held by the quiet sea. Each plank of the restaurant's wooden frame creaks faintly, the sound softened by the water until it becomes part of the ocean's slow breathing. You drift closer. The sign above the entrance sways lightly on its hinges, bubbles clinging to its edges like drops of dew. The words, "The Krusty Krab," shimmer faintly, distorted by the current, as if the ocean itself is trying to read them in silence. The doors are closed, but light spills gently through the cracks, forming thin, trembling lines that reach across the sand. You stand for a moment, letting your gaze wander over the building's surface. The walls are textured from years of current and salt, the wood worn smooth at the corners. Tiny barnacles cling to the lower planks, opening and closing in the slow rhythm of the tide. They look like little eyes watching the world pass in dreams. You step closer still, your feet sinking into the soft sand outside the door. Inside, the faint hum of the Krusty Krab's neon sign vibrates through the water. It's a low, sleepy sound, not sharp or bright, just constant and comforting, like a lullaby for a building that never truly sleeps. The light flickers once, then steadies again, painting the sand with waves of amber glow. Through the glass, you can see the outlines of the tables, wooden, square, perfectly spaced. Each one is topped with a small anchor-shaped napkin holder, its metal edges gleaming softly. Stray bubbles cling to the underside of the ceiling, catching reflections like tiny stars caught in water. You push gently against the door. It opens with a quiet creak, slow, smooth, respectful of the hour. The current drifts inside with you, carrying with it the faint scent of fried kelp and warm oil, the ghost of the day's work still suspended in the air. You step through, careful not to disturb the sand that settled near the entrance. The room glows dimly, every surface bathed in amber light that feels soft against your eyes. The silence inside isn't empty. It's thick, full of tiny sounds, the occasional drip from a pipe, the whisper of a bubble breaking loose from a corner, the faint tap of a spoon against a cup somewhere in the kitchen. Each sound feels distant, dreamlike, as if coming from another time. You glance around the dining room. The chairs are perfectly aligned, the tables spotless, wiped clean with care. There's a stillness here that speaks of habit, of a place tended to by loving hands. You can imagine SpongeBob wiping each table long after the customers had gone, humming softly to himself, his mind already halfway in tomorrow's joy. Even in rest, the Krusty Krab carries traces of his energy, small echoes that hang in the water like bubbles that refuse to pop. You move slowly between the tables, your fingers brushing the smooth wood as you pass. The texture is cool, slightly rough from years of use. You stop at one near the back, the one by the round window. Through it, you can see the deep sea beyond, faint blue light rippling across the sand outside. It looks endless from here. The world feels quiet, wide, and kind. The window frame hums faintly as the current moves past it. It's a small vibration you can feel in your hand, steady and rhythmic. You rest your palm there for a moment, closing your eyes, feeling the pulse of the sea through the glass. It feels almost like a heartbeat, not yours, not anyone's, just the ocean's. Slow, ancient, alive. You open your eyes again and notice something near the counter. A small piece of paper floating gently in the current, its edges curled. You drift closer. The note is handwritten in tidy, rounded letters, SpongeBob's handwriting, without a doubt. It reads simply, "Remember to smile tomorrow. The patties always taste better when you do." You smile too, reading it again. The ink has faded slightly, but the warmth in it hasn't. It feels like SpongeBob's optimism still lingers here, even while he sleeps peacefully in his pineapple down the road. You let the note drift from your hand, and it spins once before settling gently on the counter again, like a thought returning home. Behind the counter, a soft glimmer catches your eye, the register light blinking once every few seconds, a faint red pulse beneath the glass. It reminds you of a lighthouse in miniature, standing guard while the world rests. You lean closer to it, hearing a low, rhythmic hum, the old machine's heart still ticking after a long day. Somewhere deep inside, a single coin shifts with the movement of the current, producing a faint chime. It sounds like a sigh, metallic, soft, final. You take a slow breath and let your eyes wander across the room once more. The shadows stretch lazily across the floorboards, bending and swaying as if alive. The Krusty Krab, at midnight, feels like something between a dream and a memory, a place that knows how to rest, but never quite stops remembering what it was made for. You step behind the counter. The light changes here softer, dimmer, filtered through the thin curtain that separates the front room from the kitchen. The air feels heavier, scented faintly with kelp oil and sea salt, layered with something sweeter, the quiet hum of memory. The floorboards creak beneath your feet as you cross the threshold. Each step stirs up tiny clouds of dust that drift lazily into the water, catching the golden light like miniature constellations. The sound of the door swinging gently behind you fades, replaced by the low murmur of the Krusty Krab's sleeping kitchen. You pause, letting your eyes adjust. Everything here is perfectly in its place, the grill scrubbed to a silvery sheen, the spatulas neatly hung on hooks, gleaming faintly in the dim light. There's order here, but not just the kind made from habit. It's care real, devoted care. You can almost feel SpongeBob's presence in every corner, as though the joy he poured into his work has soaked into the walls themselves. A single pot sits on the counter upside down, still beaded with tiny bubbles that shimmer softly. Next to it, a spatula rests on a folded towel, its handle perfectly aligned with the counter's edge. The sight is oddly moving, the quiet pride of someone who loves what they do even when no one's watching. You walk closer to the grill. The metal is cool now, its surface smooth and clean, yet you can almost hear the faint ghost of its daytime sound, the steady sizzle of patties, the rhythm of SpongeBob's cheerful humming. You can almost picture him there flipping patties with practiced ease, eyes bright, apron tied too tight in his usual excitement. A memory feels alive here, replaying quietly in the air. There's something beautiful about this stillness, the kind that follows effort, like the hush after applause. The kitchen feels like it's catching its breath, dreaming of the next morning when SpongeBob will burst in, eager and ready to make the sea smell like warmth again. You reach out and touch the grill's edge, cool and faintly damp. The surface hums ever so slightly, as if it's remembering what it's made for. That small vibration runs through your fingers, a memory of heat and happiness. You close your eyes, imagining the crabby patties, sizzling in rows, bubbles rising, oil popping like little sparks of laughter. For a moment, you can almost hear SpongeBob's voice echoing softly. Order up. One Krabby Patty, made with love. The sound fades just as quickly as it came, leaving behind a faint warmth, a residue of joy that never really disappears. You move toward the sink, where a small sponge, unmistakably SpongeBob's backup sponge, sits propped against the faucet, still damp from its last use. There's a tiny smile drawn on it in marker. You can't help but grin back. The faucet drips once a single silver droplet that forms slowly, trembles, then releases, drifting upward into the soft current. Each drip echoes faintly, like a clock ticking in reverse time, unspooling gently backward into calm. You look toward the freezer door at the far end of the kitchen. It's closed tight, but a soft, icy glow seeps through the edges, turning the nearby tiles pale blue. You drift closer, feeling the faint, cool current brushing against your arm. Inside, stacks of neatly wrapped Krabby Patties rest in careful order, each one placed with almost ceremonial precision. Even in storage, there's pride in the way they're arranged, as if SpongeBob's devotion extends beyond the day into every corner of his world. Beside the freezer stands a shelf filled with jars, pickles, kelp flakes, coral dust, and secret spices whose labels have faded into mystery. You lift one gently. The glass is cold, the contents swirling in soft green currents. The smell that escapes when you loosen the lid is oddly nostalgic, warm, savory, comforting. It smells like laughter, like lunchtime, like SpongeBob's joy turned into something you can breathe. You set it back carefully and turn toward the back wall, where an old framed photograph hangs slightly askew. The glass is fogged at the corners, but the image inside is still clear. A younger Mr. Krab standing proudly beside SpongeBob and Squidward on opening day. The sign above them reads, Grand Reopening, in bright red letters, a bit crooked but full of excitement. Their smiles, one wide and eager, one forced but genuine beneath the boredom, feel frozen in time. The photo hums with the same quiet energy that fills this whole place. It's a reminder that the Krusty Krab has always been more than a restaurant. It's a living memory, gently preserved in salt water and light. You drift back toward the counter, the sounds of the kitchen folding softly around you, the hum of the fridge, the gentle sigh of a pipe. The ocean outside presses gently against the walls, like a heartbeat wrapping the building in warmth. You glance once more at the grill, the spatula, the handwritten note from earlier, and realize how alive this place feels, even when no one's here. The Krusty Krab isn't sleeping, not really. It's resting, yes, but it's also listening. Listening to the ocean, to the soft thrum of the deep, to the promise of morning. And somewhere, faint but certain, you can almost hear SpongeBob's laughter drifting in from far away, carried by the currents like a melody returning home. You take one last look around, and the thought settles quietly in your mind. Even the busiest places dream. You move slowly toward the back of the kitchen, where a narrow hallway curves quietly into shadow. The floorboards creak softly underfoot, a language of their own: long sighs, small groans, the kind that come from years of use and memory. At the end of the hall, a single door stands closed. Its surface is dark wood, framed by coral trim worn smooth from countless openings and closings. A brass plate gleams faintly near the top. The words are simple: Mr. Krab's office. You rest your hand against the handle. It's cool and slightly rough, edges dulled by time. The door gives a soft click as it opens, and a faint current of cooler water spills out, carrying with it a scent of old salt, paper, and something metallic, the scent of money resting into the dark. The room inside is smaller than you remember. The ceiling dips low, and the light is dim, coming from a single lamp that glows weakly over a wooden desk piled high with papers, receipts, and old ledgers. The glow has a golden tinge, like sunlight filtered through amber. It pools across the surface of the desk, catching on the edges of coins and the faint dust motes drifting lazily through the water. You step inside. The door closes quietly behind you with a muffled thump, sealing the world out. Everything here feels older, heavier somehow, like the sea has settled thicker around this place, carrying a kind of reverence. The desk is covered with small, careful order, stacks of receipts tied with twine, a rusty calculator still faintly ticking as its gears shift once every few seconds, and a framed picture resting at the corner. You drift closer, curiosity guiding your hand. It's a picture of Pearl, smaller, younger, wearing a bright red bow and holding a balloon that says "World's Best Dad." Her smile is wide and slightly awkward, her eyes bright with joy. Next to her, Mr. Krab stands stiff and proud, his claw resting gently on her shoulder. You can almost hear his laugh in the silence, that deep, hearty sound that shakes through his whole shell when he's happy. But here in the still room, it sounds softer, remembered, rather than heard. The light flickers once, catching the edge of a large safe sitting quietly in the corner. Its iron surface glints faintly, covered with tiny scratches, each one a small story in metal. You can almost feel the history inside, years of saving, guarding, worrying, counting. The lock ticks faintly, a small mechanical heartbeat. You can hear coins shifting within just slightly, as if the safe is breathing. You move closer and rest your hand against the cold metal. The surface hums with faint vibrations from within. You imagine Mr. Krab sitting here, after closing, counting each coin one by one, his claws moving carefully, almost tenderly. You can almost hear his voice whispering numbers in rhythm, like a bedtime chant. 1, 2, 3, me hard-earned treasure. His pride was never just greed, it was comfort. The rhythm of something that made him feel safe in an unpredictable sea. You glance around the room. There are old nautical maps pinned to the walls, faded, curling at the edges, ink blotted from time. Lines trace paths across the ocean, leading to islands you've never heard of. In the corner, an old telescope leans against the wall, its brass body tarnished, its lens clouded with salt. You can imagine Mr. Krabs peering through it late at night, dreaming of adventure, treasure, and the open sea that once called to him. Even now that yearning lingers faintly here, tangled up with his love for the Krusty Krab, for Pearl, for the life he built piece by piece. The lamp hums faintly overhead. Its glow trembles across the papers scattered across the desk. You notice one at the top of the pile, a handwritten note in Mr. Krab's blocky script. Tomorrow, check fry grease, restock buns, pay SpongeBob overtime, if he remembers to clock in this time. Beneath the list, in smaller writing, barely legible, tell SpongeBob he's doing a fine job. Don't forget. You smile softly. The words feel honest in their clumsy way. For all his bluster, there's warmth in them, the kind that doesn't always find its way out loud. You set the note back where it was, careful not to disturb the stillness. The current shifts slightly, brushing against your shoulder, making the coins in the safe give off a soft, chiming sound like wind through tiny bells. It's a peaceful sound, not greedy or cold, but comforting, almost musical. The rhythm repeats, slow, calm, endless. Each chime seems to say, "You've worked enough for today." You step back, letting your gaze sweep across the room one last time. The desk, the maps, the photo, the safe. It feels less like an office now and more like a heart, the quiet heart of the Krusty Krab, steady and loyal even in sleep. There's pride here, but also care. Love for the work, the people, the place itself. You move toward the door again, your hand brushing the handle lightly. As you open it, a soft current flows past you, carrying with it the faint metallic scent of coins and the subtle sweetness of old wood. It feels like a farewell, gentle, grateful. Behind you, as the door closes, the safe ticks once more, a single, slow click, like the end of a sentence whispered softly in the dark. When you step back into the hallway, the change in sound is gentle but certain. The low hum of the office fades behind you, replaced once again by the faint, steady rhythm of the Krusty Krab's resting body. The boards underfoot sigh as you pass, the faint shimmer of light tracing your path toward the main dining room. You emerge into the open space again, the place that had once been full of chatter and laughter and clinking plates. Now it lies empty, bathed in the same slow amber glow, as if the light itself has decided to stay behind to keep the restaurant company. The silence isn't hollow, it's warm, full of soft afterthoughts, like the sea remembering a melody it once heard in daylight. You take a moment to stand near the counter. The register light still blinks quietly, its red glow steady, patient. Each pulse feels slower now, matching the rhythm of your breathing. You can almost sense the heartbeat of the Krusty Krab syncing with your own, both steady, both calm, both listening to the quiet water that holds them. The chairs are all neatly pushed in, their legs just touching the floor, casting soft shadows that stretch like fingers across the wood. The light from the window glimmers against the floorboards, where the ocean's motion paints moving shapes, liquid and dreamlike. If you watch closely, it looks like the water is telling a story, a slow waltz of silver and gold that plays out silently beneath the ceiling fans. You drift toward the window again, the same one you stood near earlier. Outside, the seafloor glows faintly beneath the moonlight that filters down from the surface far above. You can see tiny silhouettes moving in the distance, jellyfish pulsing in slow rhythm. A small school of glowing fish sweeping past like a thought that flickers and fades. It's peaceful in a way only the deep ocean knows, slow, endless, patient. You rest your hand on the window pane. It's cool to the touch, humming faintly from the current. The vibration feels like a lullaby, the ocean's quiet whispering against the glass. For a moment, you let your mind drift with it, imagining SpongeBob asleep in his pineapple home, dreaming of perfect patties and happy customers. Somewhere, Squidward turns over in his sleep, muttering faintly about clarinets and noise, and Mr. Krabs perhaps dreams of open seas, of a chest gold that sings when it's full. The thought makes you smile. Every soul in Bikini Bottom is asleep, but their dreams are awake, floating through the water, brushing against each other like soft bubbles that never burst. You look around the room once more. There's something sacred about the stillness, not in a grand or holy way, but in the small tenderness of it. The Krusty Krab isn't just resting, it's remembering. It remembers the footsteps, the laughter, the clatter of trays, and the simple joy that fills its walls each day. Every scratch in the table, every stain on the floor, every tiny dent in the metal fryer, all of it speaks quietly of life, of effort, of care. You move toward the door again, slow and unhurried. Your footsteps lead faint trails in the sand that settled near the entrance. When you reach for the handle, you notice the sand begins to change beneath your feet as you leave the Krusty Krab behind. The soft crunch of compact grains gives way to the faint cushion of meadow smooth, cool and alive with the faintest hum. You know where you're heading. There's only one place in all of Bikini Bottom where the water itself seems to glow, where the silence carries a heartbeat. Jellyfish Fields. The journey there is gentle. The current drifts slow and steady, carrying you past quiet coral ridges and small sleeping homes. The lamps that once glimmered near the Conch Street path are long gone now, replaced by the faint natural light of the deep. Above you, the moon spills through the ocean in silver ribbons, thin wavering lines that twist softly with the movement of the water. Every stroke of that light seems to slow the world down, as if time itself is taking a breath. You pass over small ridges of sand and kelp that sway like slow dancers. A snail, half buried, twitches its antenna once before settling again. The sound of the sea around you deepens a low humming pulse that you can feel more than hear. It's the same pulse that fills every quiet part of the ocean at night, the rhythm that ties all of Bikini Bottom together while it dreams. As the ground rises, you begin to see it. A faint purple shimmer that seems to float in the distance like a horizon made of light. It flickers, soft and steady, pulsing gently in waves. Each pulse feels like a slow breath inhale. Exhale, a calm, infinite rhythm. You're close now. You crest a small hill, and there it is. Jellyfish fields. The sight steals the sound from the water for a moment. The landscape stretches out in every direction, rolling hills blanketed in soft seagrass that glows faintly under the moonlight. And above it all, drifting in unhurried clusters, the jellyfish move like dreams given shape. Hundreds of them, thousands maybe. Each one shines with its own quiet light, pinks, blues, violets, soft gold glowing like a lantern suspended in the dark. They drift without sound. Their long tendrils trail behind them, brushing the grass, stirring tiny whirlpools of silver sand. Every so often, two of them touch their lights, blending for a moment before drifting apart again. The effect is hypnotic, almost sacred, as if the whole field is breathing in perfect harmony with the sea itself. You stand still, letting your eyes adjust to the beauty of it. The world feels different here, lighter somehow, as though gravity has loosened its hold. Even your heartbeat seems to slow, sinking to the soft rhythm of the glowing waves around you. You take a few steps forward, the grass brushing lightly against your legs. It bends and sways with the current, whispering faintly as it moves. The sound isn't quite music, but it's close, a low, fluid murmur that fills the quiet space between heartbeats. If you listen long enough, it begins to sound like the sea talking to itself. A small jellyfish floats near you, its bell expanding and contracting in slow, graceful motions. It glows with a faint pink light that spills softly across your hands when it drifts close. You can see the delicate network of veins inside it, intricate, beautiful, impossibly fragile. When its tendrils brush against your arm, you feel nothing sharp, just a faint warmth like being touched by light itself. The jellyfish lingers for a moment, turning slowly in the water as if studying you. Then, with a gentle flick, it drifts upward again, disappearing into the slow-moving constellation above. You watch it go, your eyes following its light, until it's just another soft flicker among 1,000 others. Far across the field, you can see the outline of a small rock ledge, smooth and wide, like a natural resting place. You make your way toward it, moving slowly so as not to disturb the quiet rhythm of the water. The seagrass parts gently beneath your feet, closing again once you pass. When you reach the ledge, you sit. The stone is cool and smooth beneath you, worn down by countless tides. From here, the view stretches endlessly, a sea of glowing jellyfish rising and falling in waves, their light pulsing in the same slow pattern. It's like watching the ocean dream. You lean back on your hands, eyes half closed, and listen. There's no sound but the gentle whisper of movement, the brush of tendrils through the grass, the faint hum of the deep, the occasional crackle of tiny bubbles escaping the sand. Every noise is slow and far apart, like the sea speaking in its sleep. You breathe in, slowly, deeply. The water feels thicker here, rich with calm. Every breath seems to fill you with the same rhythm that fills the field, soft expansion, slow release. You realize that even your thoughts have quieted. They drift like the jellyfish themselves, light, effortless, free. It's easy to understand why SpongeBob loves this place so much. Here, the world forgets to hurry. There's no rush, no noise, no lists to finish, just light, water, and peace. You can almost see him here in the distance, net in hand, smile wide, his laugh echoing faintly through the meadow. But tonight, even his laughter sleeps. Tonight, the jellyfish have the field to themselves. You tilt your head upward, gazing into the slow spiral of light above you. The jellyfish drift higher, their glow fading as they rise until they look like stars scattered in the ocean's sky. The moonlight mingles with them, blurring where one ends and the other begins. It's impossible to tell where the sea stops and the dream begins. You stay on the smooth ledge for a while, letting the quiet stretch around you like a blanket. Every few minutes, a faint shimmer ripples across the grass, below the jellyfish, moving in unison, as if they share a secret you're only just beginning to understand. The light moves slow and low, gliding across the field like soft wind. You can feel it pass through the water, brushing your skin, gentle as sleep. A little farther ahead, something catches your eye, a faint cluster of brighter light nestled between the swaying hills. It's not the usual jellyfish glow. This light flickers, pulsing through a range of colors, pink, violet, and finally a deep, steady blue that settles like a heartbeat. You rise from the stone ledge and begin to walk toward it, careful not to disturb the grass too much. Each step leaves a faint swirl of sand behind, quickly erased by the current. As you draw closer, you see what it is. A coral bloom. One of the rarest sights in Jellyfish Field's coral that only opens under the calmest midnight current. The blooms look like open hands carved from light. Each one cups a glowing pearl of algae, tiny and perfect, radiating soft luminescence that spills across the meadow floor. The jellyfish float above them in reverence, their tendrils brushing lightly over the coral without touching. It feels ceremonial, like they've come to pay respect. You kneel beside the bloom, lowering your face close enough to see the patterns on its surface. Every ridge and spiral is alive with color, yet so faint it almost disappears when you blink. The coral hums softly, a frequency you can't quite hear but can feel in your bones, like the deep vibration of a lullaby sung by the sea itself. You stay there for a long time, barely moving. And then something shifts. The current changes just slightly, brushing past your ear with a whisper. You look up, expecting to see a wave of jellyfish drifting overhead. But what you see instead is a cluster of them moving together, forming a slow-moving spiral. Their lights merge into one another, shaping a pattern that spins lazily through the water, a spiral of violet and blue, endless and mesmerizing. The entire field seems to respond, the light from the coral blooming brighter for a moment, like a deep breath shared across the sea. You can feel it, the pulse again. It's not your heart. It's not the tide. It's something older, larger, more patient. It's the rhythm of the sea itself. The jellyfish spiral drifts overhead, and for a few moments, you are bathed in their glow. Each one leaves a trail of soft light behind, like the tail of a comet, fading slowly into the dark. The trails twist and weave into each other until the sky above you becomes a slow, liquid constellation. You don't move, you can't. You just breathe and watch as the pattern unfolds, slow and eternal. The spiral begins to drift apart, the jellyfish returning to their individual paths. But the glow they leave behind lingers, shimmering like a dream you can't quite let go of. The coral bloom beneath you pulses once more, faint, warm, content, and then settles back into its slow rhythm. A quiet thought drifts through your mind. How many nights has this been happening unseen? How many times has this silent ballet taken place without a single watcher? The idea feels both humbling and peaceful. Some beauty doesn't need an audience. It simply exists, steady, endless, waiting for whoever happens to pass by with open eyes. You begin walking again, heading deeper into the fields. The ground slopes gently downward and the jellyfish thin out a little, leaving wider spaces of open grass between their glows. The water feels cooler here, touched by deeper currents that rise from the trench below. The moonlight filters in at an angle, fractured by the drifting sand, long, soft beams that seem to hang motionless in the water. You pass an old, hollowed coral stump, the kind that's been carved smooth by years of tide and wind. Inside, a few tiny sea snails rest, their shells glimmering faintly in the moonlight. A single jellyfish floats inside the stump's opening, as if keeping watch. You pause, leaning close, and the creature turns ever so slightly, its body expanding in a slow, graceful bow. For a moment, it almost feels like a greeting. You bow your head in return, quietly smiling, and keep walking. The path opens up into a wide basin, a natural bowl in the ocean floor, filled with clusters of softly glowing seagrass. Each blade sways gently in the current, and together they create the illusion of waves beneath waves, rolling endlessly but never breaking. A few jellyfish drift low here, their tendrils brushing the tips of the grass, leaving trails of faint sparkles that flicker out one by one. You wade into the basin, the grass parting around you like mist. It rises up to your chest, cool and soft, carrying the faint scent of brine and deep coral. The stillness here is so complete it almost feels like you've stepped out of time. You can hear your heartbeat again, faint, distant, syncing perfectly with the slow rhythm of the field. Above you, the jellyfish continue their patient drift, each one a floating lantern, each movement a whisper. And somewhere far off, you think you hear SpongeBob's laugh faint, carried by memory rather than sound. You smile without realizing it. The sound fades as quickly as it came, blending back into the rhythm of the sea. The water feels heavy with calm now. You sink slightly into the soft grass, letting your hands rest against the seafloor. Tiny bubbles rise around your fingers, drifting lazily toward the surface. You tilt your head back, staring up through the haze of moonlight and drifting light. The field seems infinite from here, a dream that goes on forever, unfolding softly in all directions. And as the light above shifts and shimmers, you begin to wonder what other quiet mysteries the field hides when no one is watching. The slope of the basin deepens as you move forward. The grass grows shorter here, replaced by smooth, silken sand that gleams faintly like powdered pearl. The water cools as you descend, touched by deep currents that breathe in from the open ocean beyond the ridge. The sound of your movements fades until all that's left is the distant hum, that slow, deep vibration that seems to come from the heart of the sea itself. You reach the bottom of the basin and pause. It's quiet in a way that feels sacred, not empty, but full of waiting. You look up, and above you, the jellyfish spiral again, this time looser, wider, as if they're painting invisible rings in the water. Their soft light spreads across the basin like a living sky. You can't help but stare. At the edge of the basin lies a narrow passage, half covered by a curtain of seaweed. It sways gently, glowing faintly with scattered dots of phosphorescent algae. You move closer, parting the strands carefully. Beyond opens into something extraordinary. You found what few ever see, the deep valley of Jellyfish fields. Oh, the ground here is darker, made of smooth, layered stone. It slopes down into a vast hollow surrounded by rock walls that shimmer with pale blue moss. The light feels different, softer, more diffused, as if the valley itself is glowing from within. And floating everywhere, suspended in perfect stillness, are the colony's enormous jellyfish clusters, dozens of them, drifting together like glowing clouds. Each one pulses in time with the others, their combined rhythm filling the valley with a low, harmonic hum. You step into the valley carefully, letting the current guide you. Every movement feels amplified here. When you reach out your hand, the water ripples in slow waves that shimmer faintly with reflected light. It feels as if you've stepped inside a heartbeat, a slow, endless rhythm that breathes through the sea itself. Near one of the colonies, a smaller jellyfish drifts alone, its light flickering unevenly. It moves slower than the rest, its tendrils curling inward, almost as if in sleep. For a moment, you wonder if it's lost, but then another jellyfish from the colony glides toward it, wrapping its tendrils around the smaller one in a soft, pulsing embrace. They drift upward together, lights sinking until they move as one. The sight fills you with a quiet warmth, a wordless understanding that even in silence, the sea takes care of its own. You wander deeper, past glowing stone arches and small pools of still water. Each pool mirrors the drifting lights above, creating the illusion that the sky is both above and below. When you look down, you see infinite jellyfish reflected in the surface, like stars scattered across an endless mirror. The thought is soothing that the world above and below can be one and the same when everything slows down enough to listen. You find another coral bloom nestled in a crevice. This one is old, the edges smoothed and faded, but the heart of it still beats with light. Tiny shrimp hover nearby, their bodies transparent, their eyes glowing like dots of amber. They move in small, synchronized bursts, up, down, around, like living sparks dancing to the sea's soft rhythm. You reach out and gently brush the coral surface with your fingertips. It's cool, almost cold, but alive. You can feel faint vibrations pulsing through it, deep and steady as if the coral is part of a network that stretches across the entire ocean floor. It's a comforting thought knowing that every glowing bloom, every drifting jellyfish, every patch of moss is connected, breathing together under the same moonlit tide. As you lift your hand away, something drifts down from above, a small feather of seaweed caught in the current. It lands on the coral, glowing faintly with captured light. For a moment, it looks like a candle being lit, and then it drifts away again, vanishing into the haze. Even the smallest things seem sacred here. Far in the distance, a sound breaks the silence, a low, resonant note, like the echo of a whale's call. It rolls through the valley, soft but immense, and every jellyfish responds. Their lights brighten for an instant, then fade again, pulsing slower, calmer, as if the sea itself has just sighed. You stand still, heart quiet, letting that single sound ripple through you. It's not lonely. It's the ocean dreaming out loud. You close your eyes and imagine the entire world above the sleeping town, the quiet homes, the resting friends. You imagine SpongeBob's pineapple dark and still, Gary curled up at the foot of his bed, the faint hum of bubbles rising through the window. Everything is resting, breathing, connected by the same rhythm, one vast, gentle pulse that holds the whole sea in its arms. When you open your eyes again, you find yourself surrounded. The jellyfish have drifted closer, drawn by your stillness. They float around you in a slow spiral, their lights flickering softly like candlelight in a cathedral. The water glows pink, gold, and lavender colors that shift and melt into one another. You raise your hand, and one drifts near, brushing your fingers with a single tendril. It doesn't sting. It just lingers there, warm and weightless, as if saying hello. You realize then that Jellyfish Fields isn't just a place, it's a feeling. A reminder that the world can be slow, that beauty can exist without needing to be seen. That silence sometimes is the sea's way of singing. You stay there, suspended in that light, letting the moment stretch on and on. There's no need to move, no need to speak. The sea is speaking for you now softly, endlessly, in the glow of the drifting jellyfish. Time begins to dissolve in the valley. You can no longer tell how long you've been here. Minutes, hours, maybe longer. Every breath feels suspended between heartbeats, drawn out by the rhythm of the sea. The light from the jellyfish pulses softer now, dimming with each gentle beat, as if they too are growing tired. The once vivid colors have faded to pastel shades, pale lavender, faint rose, cool blue, a watercolor dream swirling beneath the moon. You drift slowly through the field, barely moving your hands. The current carries you along a winding path between the sleeping colonies. They hover motionless, bells expanding and contracting in perfect unison, 1,000 slow sighs echoing through the water. Even the sand beneath them seems to shimmer with contentment, ripples forming and fading like the soft rise and fall of breathing. A small school of luminescent minnows passes nearby. Their bodies flash silver and vanish again, like tiny thoughts slipping through half-sleep. They weave through the jellyfish tendrils without fear. Everything here is too peaceful for danger to exist. You follow them with your eyes until they disappear into the darker stretch of water beyond the valley wall. The deeper you drift, the quieter it becomes. The hum of the coral fades, replaced by the steady thrum of the sea's pulse, low, vast, eternal. You can feel it inside your chest, slow and rhythmic, syncing with your heartbeat. It's not a sound so much as a presence, the ocean, reminding you that you are a part of it, that everything in this still world moves together. At the valley's center, you find a flat stretch of stone shaped like a natural platform. You settle onto it, crossing your legs, letting your arms float weightlessly at your sides. The rock is smooth and faintly warm, absorbing the glow that falls from above. From here, you can see everything the sleeping colonies drifting high above, the faint silhouettes of coral ridges, the silver beams of moonlight slicing gently through the water. It feels like sitting inside a dream that's aware of itself. You close your eyes and listen. There are layers to the silence. the slow hiss of the current weaving through distant tunnels, the almost imperceptible crackle of tiny bubbles escaping the sand, the whisper of grass brushing against coral far above. All of it merges into one endless murmur, the ocean breathing, steady and sure. You exhale and feel the water move with you, as if returning the gesture. When you open your eyes again, the jellyfish have gathered overhead. The path from Jellyfish Fields to Goo Lagoon winds gently through the sleeping ridges of coral. The journey feels longer at night, but not in an unpleasant way. Each turn of the path stretches time, making the quiet last a little longer, as if the ocean itself is asking you to slow down and listen. You follow the current that drifts west, the one SpongeBob once said, smells like sunshine, even under the moon. It carries you along softly, past stretches of sand that shimmer faintly, and through small clouds of plankton that glow when disturbed. They swirl around your hands like stars pulled close enough to touch. Every movement leaves a trail of faint light, and for a moment, you feel like you're drawing constellations into the sea itself. The sound of Jellyfish Fields fades behind you, replaced by a deeper silence. It's the sound of wide, open water, the hush that exists between tides. You can feel it in your chest, like a heartbeat half asleep. Ahead, the ocean begins to widen. The ridges fall away, and the ground smooths out into vast, rolling sand. You know you're close when the smell changes faintly sweet, touched with salt and the memory of warm daylight. Goo Lagoon lies just beyond the final rise of the seafloor. When you reach the crest, you stop to take it in. The lagoon stretches out before you like a mirror of the moon. It's enormous, framed by smooth coral cliffs that curve inward, forming a natural bowl. The surface of the goo shimmers with slow ripples, glowing faintly under the moonlight that filters down from above. It looks heavier than water, thicker, denser, yet somehow still gentle. Every ripple moves with a syrupy grace, bending the light into soft ribbons that dance across the sand. The lagoon is quiet tonight. The laughter and chatter that fill its shores during the day are long gone. No beachgoers, no volleyball games, no shouts from lifeguard towers. Only the sigh of the current brushing against the rocks and the occasional faint pop of a bubble rising from the goo's surface. Everything here seems to be resting, even the air. You drift down toward the edge where the sand meets the goo. The ground is cool and smooth beneath your feet, scattered with seashells that gleam like scattered coins. Some are open and empty. Others hold faint glimmers of bioluminescence that blink on and off like tiny breathing lights. You kneel and let your fingers trail through the goo. It's thicker than the ocean around it, cool and slow, clinging slightly to your skin before releasing. It feels like touching liquid moonlight. When the tide shifts, the lagoon gives a low sigh. It's not a sound you hear with your ears, more like something that travels through your bones. The goo pulls outward, then back in, as if inhaling and exhaling. You can see the motion ripple across the entire lagoon, a slow heartbeat of the sea. You walk along the shoreline, your footsteps leaving small hollows that fill slowly behind you. Tiny crab tracks cross your path, thin, careful lines pressed into the wet sand. Their owners are nowhere to be seen, likely tucked beneath stones, resting in the warmth left over from the day. Every few steps, a bubble rises and pops softly beside you, releasing a shimmer of pale blue light. It's as if the lagoon is dreaming, speaking softly in bubbles instead of words. Across the water, You can see the outline of the lifeguard tower, silent now, its flag folded and still. The wooden frame casts long shadows that stretch across the goo, fading where the moonlight touches. You imagine Larry the lobster asleep somewhere nearby, his whistle tucked under his arm, the day's energy finally cooled. The tower's ladder sways gently in the current, each creak softened by distance until it becomes part of the ocean's lullaby. You sit down on a low rock near the edge and watch the surface shift. The moonlight turns the goo into a slow-moving canvas, each ripple painting new shapes that vanish as soon as they appear. Circles stretch, overlap, fade a language written and erased by the water itself. It's hypnotic, this slow, wordless communication. You realize it's the same rhythm that has always been here, repeating since before anyone named it Goo Lagoon. A rhythm older than the sand, older than Bikini Bottom, perhaps older than time itself, the rhythm of calm. A faint breeze drifts through the shallows, carrying with it the smell of salt and distant kelp. The sea responds with a low murmur, brushing against the rocks as if whispering back. You can almost make out words in the sound, half-formed, soft, like the ocean talking in its sleep. Somewhere nearby, a jellyfish from the fields must have wandered off course. You spot its glow through the haze, moving slowly across the lagoon's edge. It drifts lazily, tracing circles in the air before disappearing into the shadows. Even here, in the separate world of thick, calm goo, the gentle creatures of the sea find their way, drawn by light and stillness. You lie back against the sand, staring upward. The surface of the lagoon above you bends the moonlight into gentle waves that ripple across your vision. It looks like the sky is melting stars dissolving into liquid silver. Each slow movement of the goo catches the light differently, creating the illusion that the night itself is breathing. You exhale and let your eyes half close. The world fades to shapes and whispers the shimmer of light, the distant hum of current, the steady breath of the lagoon. It feels alive, but not awake, as if the entire sea is resting around you, holding you in its calm. And for a long moment, you simply float there in thought, between dream and waking, between the soft touch of the sand and the endless, whispering quiet of Goo Lagoon at rest. The current from the open sea arrives at last, a slow, invisible hand that brushes across the lagoon's surface. It doesn't disturb the peace, only bends it, reshaping the ripples into new patterns that shimmer faintly under the moonlight. You drift with it, letting it carry you toward the cliffs that ring the lagoon's far edge. The cliffs are tall and smooth, carved by centuries of tide and time. In the daylight, they glow coral pink and gold, but at night they fade into cool shades of violet and blue. Their faces are dotted with small caves, each one a pocket of quiet, where the sea collects its forgotten sounds. You can hear faint murmurs drifting out, echoes of laughter from long-ago summers, the hollow splash of a wave, the whisper of a breeze that hasn't blown in years. The cliffs seem to remember everything. You float closer to one of the larger caves, its entrance framed by glowing anemones. Their tendrils sway like candle flames in slow motion, casting pale light that ripples across the goo. As you enter, the sound of the outside world fades entirely, replaced by a deep, liquid silence. It feels like stepping into a memory, one that belongs to the ocean itself. Inside, the cave walls shimmer faintly with layers of pearl-like residue. Each layer glows in a different tone, some green, some blue, some almost silver. It's said that every shimmer represents a tide that passed through long ago, leaving behind a trace of itself before moving on. You run your hand along the smooth surface, and it hums faintly beneath your fingertips, as though recognizing another heartbeat nearby. At the cave's center lies a pool perfectly circular, untouched by current. Its surface is so still it looks solid. You kneel beside it and peer down. Instead of your reflection, you see images shifting within, scenes of the lagoon in daylight. Children laughing, splashing. Larry the lobster calling out from his tower. SpongeBob and Patrick racing each other through the shallows, leaving trails of bubbles behind them. The images shimmer like fragments of light trapped beneath glass, each moment appearing for only an instant before dissolving into another. You realize the pool is remembering. Every sound, every ripple, every voice that ever echoed here, all gathered and held in this quiet mirror. The lagoon doesn't forget. It carries everything, storing joy and noise alike in the folds of its silence. Even now, as you watch, you can see flashes of older memories. The lagoon before Bikini Bottom was built, when only coral and ancient sea life drifted here beneath the moon. The same glow, the same quiet, the same rhythm of breath in the water. Everything changes, yet nothing ever truly leaves. You sit there for a long time, listening to the silence that holds all the echoes. The air in the cave feels thicker, warmer, as though the lagoon itself is aware of your presence, content to share its memories without words. You whisper a thank you, though you're not sure to whom. Maybe to the sea, maybe to time, maybe to everything that ever drifted through this place and left a piece of itself behind. When you finally step back out into the open lagoon, the water feels slightly cooler. The tide has shifted again, just enough for the stars above to change position. The moon sits lower now, its light softer, as if preparing to rest as well. You wade toward the cliffs on the far side, where clusters of seagrass sway lazily. Between the blades, you spot small creatures resting, tiny sea snails curled into perfect spirals, soft-bodied starfish flattened gently against the sand, and small crabs nestled into burrows, their claws tucked in as though sleeping. Even the fish here seem slower, moving only when the current insists, their fins trailing like ribbons. A shape passes above you, slow, graceful. You look up to see a manta ray gliding through the water overhead. Its wings move like the turning of pages, silent and wide. Each motion sends faint ripples of light across the lagoon floor, scattering silver across the sand. It circles once, twice, then vanishes into the shadows beyond the cliffs. Its passing leaves a calm so deep it feels sacred. For a moment, you close your eyes and let the stillness sink in. You can hear your heartbeat, slow and steady, blending with the faint hum of the lagoon. It feels as if the two are speaking to each other, a conversation between body and sea. Every beat says, I am here. I am calm. I belong. When you open your eyes again, you notice small glows beneath the goo, dozens of them, scattered like buried lanterns. They pulse gently in time with the tide. You reach down and find that they're small stones, smooth, round, and warm. Each one glows with its own soft hue: blue, pink, green, gold. You realize they're the same type of stones that formed the circle you found earlier. Perhaps they drifted away over time, scattered by the water's slow breath. You gather a few into your hands and hold them up. The light spills through your fingers, turning them translucent. It feels like holding tiny suns. You let the stones slip back into the goo, watching them fall and settle where they belong. The lagoon accepts them silently, adding their light to its slow, eternal glow. A distant sound breaks the hush, not loud but noticeable. It's the faint creak of wood, the lifeguard tower, shifting slightly current. It groans once, then settles, its flagpole swaying like a metronome marking the ocean's tempo. The sound fades quickly, but it carries a sense of familiarity, like a memory returning home. You take one last look around. Everywhere you turn, there's calm layers upon layers of it. The air, the sand, the water, even the silence itself seems to rest, perfectly content. You can almost feel the lagoon dreaming its dreams made of ripples and starlight and the faintest echoes of laughter carried from long ago. You stand there, waist deep, and feel the faint pull of the current, urging you back toward the shore. It's not insistent, just a gentle reminder that all things, even peace, are meant to move eventually. You take a breath, feeling the warmth of the goo against your skin, the soft rhythm of the world moving quietly around you. Then you begin to drift with it, following the slow current back toward the sands of the sleeping beach. The current carries you softly toward the edge of Goo Lagoon, the way a lullaby carries a dreamer toward the edge of sleep. The thick, glowing water thins gradually, each movement becoming lighter, easier. The sand beneath your feet returns, smooth and cool, guiding you toward the shoreline. Above, the moon has lowered closer to the horizon, painting the lagoon in long silver bands that stretch across the goo like the brushstrokes of a patient artist. You pause halfway, looking back. The lagoon stretches behind you like a sheet of living glass, perfectly still except for the faintest ripples. Each wave holds the reflection of a star, trembling slightly, as though afraid to fall. You can see the glow of the cliffs and the faint shimmer of the stone circle beneath the water, pulsing once every few seconds, slow, deliberate, eternal. It feels like a heartbeat, not of a creature, but of the sea itself. You close your eyes and let the silence wash over you. The sound of the lagoon is barely there, only the low hum of the ocean breathing through its sleep. There are no gulls, no laughter, no footsteps, only the world at rest. It's a silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels full, alive with quiet meaning. The kind of silence that comes after a long day when everything finally exhales. You open your eyes again and keep walking, your body lighter now, your steps slower. The goo at your ankles begins to fade into clear water, then to wet sand. Each grain catches a glint of moonlight. Tiny hermit crabs crawl lazily from their burrows, their shells faintly reflecting the glow. They move without hurry, as if even they know there's no need for speed here. Near the shoreline, the faint outlines of daytime life linger like ghosts of the sun, a half-buried beach ball, a tilted umbrella swaying with the current, a wooden chair tipped gently on its side. They are silent now, waiting for morning. Even these forgotten pieces of the day seem to be resting, as if the night has lulled everything living or not into the same deep rhythm. You walk past the lifeguard tower, the same one you saw glowing faintly in the distance earlier. Up close, it looks almost ancient, covered in fine sand, the wood pale from years of salt and sunlight. The flag above it drifts in slow motion, caught between stillness and movement. For a moment, it feels like the tower is watching over the lagoon, standing sentinel through the long hours of quiet. You imagine the voices it's heard, the laughter, the splashes, all the life that has passed beneath it. Now, in the hush of the night, it keeps those sounds safe, letting them rest until dawn. You continue walking until the water reaches only your toes. The shore spreads out before you, a long stretch of pale sand lit by moonlight that looks like frost. You take a seat on the cool ground, your hands sinking slightly into the soft grains. They feel smooth and cold, but not unfriendly. A soft wind moves across the beach, carrying the faint scent of salt and kelp, and something else, something ancient, like memory. The waves lap quietly a few feet away, barely breaking. Each one approaches, sighs and retreats, its edge tracing a faint glow in the sand before fading. The pattern repeats endlessly, and the longer you watch, the more it feels like the sea is breathing right beside you. Inhale. Exhale. A rhythm as old as time. You look out across the water again, and the reflection of the moon seems to waver, as though it's growing tired too. It ripples softly, bends, and reforms a dream half remembered. For a moment you imagine SpongeBob and Patrick standing on the same shore earlier in the day, laughing and throwing jellyfish nets into the air. The thought feels distant, like an echo of warmth still lingering in the cool night. Everything that happens here seems to leave a trace, a little shimmer that never quite fades away. A few sea flowers bloom nearby. Their petals open wide to the dim light. Each one catches the glow of the lagoon and reflects it back gently like the ocean smiling. Tiny bubbles rise from the sand between them, floating upward before popping silently. The air they release feels fresh and cool, as if it's been resting deep beneath the sand all day, waiting for night to let it breathe again. You lie back, feeling the sand cradle your body. The sky above is endless, the stars sharp and near, as though the water between worlds has grown thinner. The sound of the lagoon fades into your heartbeat until you can't tell them apart. It's as though the ocean and the night have become one, a single vast quiet that you're floating inside. Your mind drifts to the thought that perhaps Goo Lagoon is not just a place, but a state of being. A reminder that everything, no matter how busy or loud or bright, eventually rests. That every wave, no matter how strong, returns to calm water. You realize the ocean doesn't chase stillness. It finds it naturally, in the spaces between movement, in the pauses between tides. And maybe that's what the lagoon is teaching you now that peace isn't something you search for. It's what remains when everything else finally lets go. You stay like that for a long while, breathing, resting, not thinking, only existing in the way the lagoon does. When you finally rise, your movements are slow, effortless. You brush the sand from your arms and look once more at the water. The moon's reflection trembles faintly, and for an instant, you could swear it blinked, as if the lagoon itself acknowledged you before returning to its dream. Whisper a quiet goodnight to the sea. The sound barely leaves your lips before the wind carries it away. But it doesn't matter. Here, even whispers seem eternal. You take one last look at Goo Lagoon, still glowing, patient, and begin walking toward the path that will lead you onward. The sand gives way beneath your feet with each step, soft and forgiving. Behind you, the water sighs once more, as though settling into deeper sleep. You don't look back again. You don't need to, because some part of you will always remain there in the stillness, in the glow, in the heart of Goo Lagoon at rest, as though the sand itself has learned your pace. Each step you take leaves a quiet print that glows faintly for a heartbeat before fading back into stillness. Behind you, the lagoon rests under its blanket of moonlight, a vast, sleeping mirror that seems to hum a low, endless lullaby. You pause once to look back, watching the silver ripples drift across its surface. They move slower now, as if the sea itself has slipped fully into its dreams. The current that leads away from the lagoon winds through tall coral ridges that curve like gentle waves frozen in stone. Bioluminescent moss clings to the sides, glowing in soft patches of blue and green that guide your way like lanterns. You don't hurry. No one ever hurries at this hour. The ocean around you is at its quietest, the kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty but whole, like a deep breath held between two moments of time. As you walk, you begin to hear faint sounds returning to the water, not noise exactly, but soft hints of life. A distant click from a crab adjusting its shell. A muffled hum as a small current brushes against a coral wall. The world is stirring, but gently. Even the ocean wakes slowly. The path narrows and bends downward. You follow it until the sand becomes smooth and the rocks around you grow taller, forming a narrow canyon of coral. Here, the moonlight barely reaches, replaced by the soft glow of anemones clinging to the walls. Their tendrils move with sleepy grace, reaching and retreating, painting patterns across your path. Each movement leaves ripples of color that fade to gray-blue like the reflections of passing dreams. Somewhere ahead, you can see faint lights through the haze, the warm glow of Bikini Bottom's night lamps. They look distant, scattered across the sea floor like stars fallen from the surface. You smile without meaning to. There's comfort in seeing them again, those little glimmers of home. The canyon widens gradually, spilling out into the open sand plain that leads toward town. It feels different now, familiar, yet softer somehow. The same streets you passed earlier in the night, but changed by stillness and memory. The coral homes in the distance look like sleeping creatures, their windows dark except for the occasional flicker of a nightlight deep within. You drift along the path that leads toward Conch Street, the sand whispering quietly under your feet. The current here moves gently from west to east, carrying the faint smell of kelp and salt. A few bubbles rise beside you, popping softly like tiny sighs. It's almost as though the town itself is breathing in its sleep. As you near the first few houses, you notice how peaceful everything feels. The mailboxes stand in a perfect line, each one faintly tilted by the day's tide. A pair of small sea snails have settled on the edge of one, their shells glinting like marbles. A discarded net, half buried in sand, sways gently with the current. The lights in the windows flicker now and then, soft and golden, as if the dreams inside are glowing through the glass. You pass Squidward's house first. Its tall, stone face looks stern even at night, but there's a warmth to it now, a kind of still dignity that sleep gives to all things. Through one of the upper windows, a faint light glows, maybe a candle, or maybe the last note of a daydream still drifting through his clarinet. You can almost hear the ghost of a melody, slow, wandering, incomplete. A song that doesn't need to end, because it was never meant to begin. Next comes Patrick's rock. It's closed tight, sealed against the night. The sand around it is smooth, undisturbed except for the faint trail of a jellyfish that must have drifted by earlier. You can imagine Patrick inside, snoring softly, his dreams full of bubbles and snacks and quiet joy. The thought makes you smile again, the kind of small, quiet smile that belongs to the late hours of the night. The current turns slightly, leading you toward the pineapple house at the curve of the street. SpongeBob's home stands glowing faintly, a single warm light flickering through one of the round windows. The door creaks gently with the tide, and the soft outline of bubbles rises from the chimney. Everything about it feels safe, the kind of place the sea itself seems to cradle. You stop at the gate and listen. Down from inside a slow, rhythmic hum. It's SpongeBob's breathing. Calm, steady, content. It fills the water around the house like the pulse of the ocean itself. For a moment, you simply stand there, watching the house sway slightly with the current. It's strange you've seen this street 100 times in daylight, full of chatter and color and movement. But at night, it becomes something else entirely. A sanctuary. A place where even laughter rests, where every wall and shell and bubble finds stillness. You lean lightly against the fence and look up. Above, the water glows faintly from the moon, and tiny particles drift down like snow. They catch in the currents, shimmering as they fall. Each one seems to move with purpose, as if it knows exactly where it belongs. And maybe it does. Maybe everything in the ocean does, even the things that drift. You take a slow breath, the water cool and soft against your skin. You feel the faint thrum of life in the coral beneath your feet, the pulse of the sea surrounding you, and the quiet heartbeat of SpongeBob's home ahead. All of it together feels like one vast, gentle lullaby, the kind that never truly ends, only fades into new beginnings. You stay like that for a long moment, unmoving, as if afraid to disturb the perfect balance of the night. Nothing about it asks for attention. It just is. And in that stillness, you realize that home isn't just the place you return to. It's the feeling of being understood by the quiet. The water around SpongeBob's pineapple seems to breathe. Each quiet ripple that brushes against the outer wall is in a slow curve, then falls back into itself like the sea is gently rocking the home to sleep. You can almost feel the warmth inside the faint scent of soap bubbles and sea salt, the softness of a pillow pressed just right. Through the small window, a few dim lights shimmer from the kitchen. Maybe a jellyfish lamp left on, or the glow of a bubble clock, counting the seconds until morning. You take one small step closer, your shadow stretching across the sand. Inside, SpongeBob turns slightly in his sleep, murmuring something soft and cheerful. It's hard to make out, but it sounds like a dream about jellyfishing something simple and happy. His laughter, even half-formed and sleepy, feels like a spark in the quiet. It fades quickly, but the warmth of it lingers, drifting through the water like a light current of memory. You turn away gently, not wanting to disturb the stillness. Past the pineapple, The path bends and widens toward the heart of town. The streets are lined with coral posts that glow dimly from the inside, each one topped with a bubble lantern that sways slowly with the tide. Their faint golden light spills across the sand, forming rippling trails that move like ribbons beneath your feet. In the distance, you can see the faint outline of the Krusty Krab, just a shadow now, resting after the long day. Even from here, the shape is unmistakable, that familiar curved roof and tall, waving flag, now completely still. The sign above the door glints faintly, catching the moonlight. There's a comfort in seeing it, even empty. A reminder that everything, even the busiest places, has its time for rest. To your left, the chum bucket stands equally quiet, though its metal shell gleams faintly blue under the soft glow of the moon. A small stream of bubbles rises from one of its vents, twisting lazily into the dark. Inside, it's impossible to tell whether Plankton is asleep or still awake, plotting quietly. But maybe even he, in some small corner of the night, lets himself rest. Maybe even his dreams are filled with the same slow rhythm of the sea, not schemes, but silence. You drift further, past the coral clock tower that marks the center of Bikini Bottom. It stands tall and still, its face faintly glowing from the soft jelly inside that powers it. The hands move slowly, silently, time passing without sound. Each tick feels like a heartbeat lost in the deep, marking the quiet hours before dawn. You can almost feel it through the water, steady, patient, eternal. A small shell rolls across the sand near your foot. It bumps lightly against a rock, spinning once before settling. You bend slightly to pick it up. It's smooth, pearly white with faint pink spirals running through it. When you hold it close, you can hear the soft whisper of the ocean inside that timeless, endless murmur that connects every drop of water to every other. You place it gently back where it was, and the sound fades, swallowed by the sea. Beyond the clock tower, the houses become smaller, rounder, closer together. They lean slightly toward one another as if whispering secrets in their sleep. Some have tiny coral gardens and front small patches of kelp, miniature sea flowers, bits of driftwood art. The way the moonlight touches them makes the colors seem softer, muted but full of life. It's as if the ocean has turned everything down to its quietest, calmest setting, a lullaby woven through light and color. You pass a row of seaweed fences, their leaves drifting lazily with the current. From somewhere behind one of them, you hear the faint creak of a chair. A small old fish sits there, rocking gently, his eyes half closed. He doesn't notice you, or maybe he does and chooses not to say anything. His breathing is slow and steady, his fins folded loosely in his lap. It feels like he's part of the night, a piece of it that watches over everything else while the town dreams. A pair of glowing jellyfish float overhead, their tendrils shimmering like trails of liquid moonlight. They drift slowly across the sky, moving in perfect harmony. You watch them until they fade behind a coral ridge, their glow dissolving into the soft blue darkness. Their light leaves faint reflections across the sand, like ripples that never quite fade. As you continue walking, the faint hum of the town returns. It's not noise, just life breathing gently beneath the surface. A shell door creaks in the distance. A current brushes past, carrying the scent of kelp fries from a closed stand. A sea snail slides across the path, leaving a glistening trail behind. Each sound feels deliberate, peaceful, perfectly timed. You find yourself passing the small park near Jellyfish Avenue, the same one where SpongeBob sometimes feeds bubbles to the snails. At night, it looks entirely different. The swing set sways gently, moved only by the tide. The sand below it glows faintly from the moonlight filtering through the kelp trees above. A tiny crab scurries past, then stops to rest beneath a shell. Even here, the night seems to wrap everything in stillness. You sit down on a smooth coral bench, running your fingers along its cool, polished surface. The water feels heavier now, not cold, just thick with quiet. You tilt your head back and look up again. The moon, faint and far away, sends down a path of silver light that ripples through the ocean like a road. It stretches from the surface all the way down to you, and for a moment, it feels like you could follow it anywhere. You breathe deeply, the water cool and clean as it fills your chest. Everything is so still that even your thoughts seem to move slower, softer, until they dissolve into the rhythm of the current. The town rests, the sea rests, and so do you. The stillness deepens before it begins to change. You can feel it, a shift so subtle it might have gone unnoticed, if not for the way the current brushes against your skin, a touch lighter now, almost curious. The night is still vast, but its edges are beginning to blur, the darkness loosening like a tide preparing to turn. Above, faint ribbons of paler blue begin to unfurl through the water, twisting between the shadows. It isn't sunrise yet, more like the ocean, taking a slow breath before morning. You rise from the coral bench and begin to walk again. The water feels cooler here, as if it knows the night is almost over and is savoring its last quiet hours. The path takes you past a small collection of kelp trees, swaying gently, their long fronds brushing the sand like sleepy hands. Each movement releases a soft cascade of bubbles that float upward, catching the dim light as they rise. You follow your eyes until they vanish into the slow blue above. Farther along, a sign half buried in sand marks the edge of the residential street. Welcome home, Bikini Bottomers. The paint is faded, the letters curling lightly, but the warmth of it still lingers, as if even the sign understands that home is not about perfection, but presence. You pause beside it, resting your hand lightly against its wooden frame. The texture is rough, but familiar, carved by years of gentle currents. The sea has a way of softening everything, even time. The houses ahead begin to glow faintly. Not from the lamps, but from the rising shimmer of the water above. It's a delicate light, pale, uncertain, but filled with promise. You pass a row of coral domes, their small round windows reflecting the faint glow. Inside, silhouettes shift slightly, a fish turning in their sleep, a curtain swaying with the tide. The town is still asleep, but it's dreaming of waking. You notice how every sound feels new again. The faint hum of currents under the sand. The distant murmur of waves against the coral cliffs. Even your own steps make soft, swirling patterns in the water, as though the ocean is remembering you. Everything is alive in its stillness, not empty, but waiting. Ahead, the main street bends gently toward the open ridge that overlooks the town. You follow it, each step lighter than the last. As you climb, the water grows thinner, clearer, shimmering with an almost glassy glow. From the ridge, you can see all of Bikini Bottom below a collection of soft shapes resting in the cradle of the sea. The Krusty Krab, the chum bucket, the jellyfish fields beyond, even the faint glint of Goo Lagoon far in the distance. All of it connected, all of it quiet. The way the currents move between them feels like breath slow, deep, endless. You stand there for a while, listening. Not to sound, but to the quiet beneath sound. That subtle hum the ocean keeps hidden until you've been still long enough to hear it. It's the same hum that fills the spaces between words, the pause before a wave, the silence after laughter. It's what binds everything together, the voice of the deep itself. A small school of glowing fish drifts past, their bodies glimmering like faintly lit candles. They weave through the water in gentle spirals, leaving tiny trails of light behind. You watch them until they fade into the lower streets, disappearing one by one. Their passing feels like a thought, dissolving into the night, leaving only calm. You turn and start back down the ridge, following the familiar current that curves toward Conch Street once more. The sand beneath your feet is cool and soft, marked with the faint traces of your earlier steps. They've already begun to fade, smoothed by the slow rhythm of the sea. It's strange how quickly the ocean erases, not as a loss, but as a way of keeping everything always new. As you walk, the glow of SpongeBob's home grows brighter ahead, the pineapple surface catching the earliest hints of morning light, filtering through the water. It shines with soft amber and gold hues, as if the dawn itself has chosen it first. The bubbles that rise from its chimney glint like tiny suns, breaking apart and drifting lazily into the current. Everything about the house feels alive again, pulsing faintly with warmth and color. You slow your pace as you draw near, not wanting to break the spell. From inside, faint movement, a soft shuffle, the creak of a floorboard. Then silence again. SpongeBob must still be dreaming, floating somewhere far beyond the waking sea. You wonder what his dream looks like tonight. Maybe he's jellyfishing under a sky of stars or flipping Krabby Patties in a kitchen made of clouds. Or maybe he's right here, walking through the same quiet streets beside you. The thought brings a quiet comfort. In a way, everyone in Bikini Bottom shares the same dream, the dream of belonging, of gentle tides and soft light, of home. The kind of dream that doesn't fade with morning, but hums quietly beneath everything you do. You pass by Patrick's rock again. This time, a faint snore rumbles from beneath it, muffled but steady. You can't help but laugh softly, a tiny sound swallowed quickly by the sea. It echoes faintly through the coral nearby, mingling with the first golden rays piercing through the upper currents. Even the water feels warmer now, touched by light. As you near Squidward's house, you hear something unexpected, a faint, distant note, a clarinet. It's hesitant, soft, the kind of sound made by someone not quite awake but unable to stay asleep. The note drifts through the water, bending with the current, dissolving into the still air. It's lonely, but beautiful, a sound that belongs only to these moments before dawn. You stop and listen. Another note follows, quieter, fading before it reaches you. Then nothing. Maybe he went back to sleep, or maybe he just wanted to remind the world that he was still here even in silence. You stand for a while longer, letting the sound settle in the water around you. The clarinet, the soft hum of currents, the faint sighs of bubbles, all of it blends together until the world feels like one long, slow exhale. The sea, the town, the morning, all breathing as one. And then above, a faint light shifts. A brighter streak ripples through the upper ocean, shimmering across the roofs of the houses. Through glimmer of morning. It moves through the water like a whisper, touching everything in turn, the corals, the shells, the sand.